Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Coffer.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the lighter side of the spectrum. My guest today is Heather Burroughs, and she brings such a powerful mix of personal experience, professional insight, and hard-won advocacy. I'm really excited about this conversation. It's going to be fascinating. Heather grew up with a sister on the autism spectrum long before most people really understood autism. And that experience helped shape the way she saw people and eventually led her into school psychology. But Heather's story is also one of enormous personal resilience. While her father was facing early onset Parkinson's and dementia, Heather was also trying to survive an explosive first marriage, raise two young children, and rebuild her life from the ground up. Everything shifted again when her daughter, Devin, who has a rare genetic condition and is non-speaking, began to be deeply underestimated. Heather knew what the system was missing, and that set off an 8-year federal court battle that changed her. She went from being painfully shy to fiercely advocating, not just for her own daughter, but for families everywhere who are fighting to be seen and heard. She also worked in healthcare during the height of the pandemic, so she has seen up close how multiple systems can fail people and how hard families have to fight when those systems stop listening. I met Heather recently through her work on the Communications Right bill battle that's currently underway in New York State, and we'll be talking about that. I've been thoroughly impressed with her ability to understand and communicate complex issues in a way that's deeply human and meaningful. And what I love most about Heather's story is it's not just about courage, it's about evolution. Heather has proved that you don't have to start out fearless to become someone who changes systems. Heather, I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this conversation as well.
Me too. Especially since I mentioned we connected about over the Communications Rights bill and working together on this. And I do want to get into that, of course, because I think it's critical for so many reasons, as we know. And it's something that a lot of people still may not know a lot about. But I want to, back up a little bit because I think your story, your background, how you got to where you are is remarkable. Can you, when you look back, can you talk about where you feel like that your advocacy story really began? And was it with that legal battle? Because that sounds intense and incredible. Yeah.
Really, growing up with a sister on the spectrum, you think 50 years ago, people just didn't really know what autism was. So Erin was just Erin. She was her quirky self. She didn't really start talking till she was 3, and then she just kind of repeated things. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know there was a name for it. Like, I just had no idea. She was just her. And so I was doing social stories and things like that before I knew the name for them. We would write out a script and we'd do these certain things. And then my father was a school psychologist, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So I started training, and then I became one. And now I'm in my field, and they placed me in a classroom full of people just like my sister. I was like, there's a name for this. This is autism. So I ran home to tell my dad, and he said, yeah, I knew it was autism, but back when your sister was born, if we acknowledged that, they would have sent her away. They had just started letting people with disabilities into public schools. And because he was in that system, he was of the do not rock the boat mentality. We're going to say she has a speech delay, and that's it. We're not going to use a term that people didn't understand or could use against her. So I get it. But then I decided when my daughter was facing issues, all those years later, that I was not going to be a do not rock the boat person. I was going to rock the boat. I was going to make sure they heard me, which was dramatically different than my personality. Like you said, I was really shy.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Again, of course, I know you now. I can't imagine a painfully shy Heather.
I think it was just growing up with somebody who responded differently in social situations. Like we never knew how Aaron would do, how things would go. And so it was easier to blend in than stand out. That like became my thing. I was going to just kind of be there, but not be the focus, just in case things went off the rails. We could exit quietly. No one would realize. And I don't have that liberty anymore. I have 4 children and they all have different support needs. And we sometimes make a scene when we go places. Like we are just us. And I have come to terms with that. And I live in that space now. And I don't feel like I have to modify it or make it pretty or less messy. It doesn't still impact some of the things that I do or say. But, I think I've evolved. Like you said, I'm not.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not ashamed in any way, of course. I never was, but I'm okay with people seeing all of it.
That's such an important message, Heather. I mean, I think there's still, a lot of people who aren't sure how to manage that with their kids or with their families. And so I think modeling that, living that is so important. I'm just curious. So was it just you and your sister or any other siblings growing up?
It was just the 2 of us.
Okay.
And it's fun now because we're actually working in the same building, not for the same employer, but I get to see her as her adult self navigating situations. It's kind of nice because I can be there to help her debrief or figure something out. She'll still text me, like, my boss has her hands on her hips and she's using this kind of voice. Do you think she's mad? Then I'm like, oh no. But I also know I can't run over there and fix everything.
Right.
At some point, they have to know who their safe people are in each environment and have people they can trust, because one person can't be the only one they rely on. And I think I tried to do that for a long time, but then I had my own kids and it just gets really hard, right? My dad was sick. You can't be everything to everyone, and you have to start teaching, empowering people to find other ways.
Another great point, and something I think a lot of us struggle with, particularly in the non-speaking world, when you are, in a lot of ways, everything. You're the communications partner and a parent.
The only one sometimes, that knows. Yeah.
I know that's one of my goals. It's a lot of pressure, but you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, just, from a life standpoint, you have to learn to lean on others. You have to learn to trust others. We can't always be there. And again, it's just emotionally not healthy to have that level of dependency, I think. As
that's why we want to change the systems, right? So we know when we're not there, there are still fair rules that are applied, that our loved ones they don't face additional barriers. Because when you're talking about non-speaking, it is insane to me that we actually, these safeguards, they call them, or protections, restrict us and take away choice and make things harder. So that's where my focus is right now, because I won't be here forever, but Devin will always have a voice. And I just want that to be heard. I don't want a system shutting down her voice.
Yeah, I want to get into that in 1 minute. I'm curious because one of the things, again, I find fascinating with your background, and I think that gives you kind of unique insight into this battle. Well, first of all, talk about the legal battle. We didn't get into that. So, yeah. What was the fight, and how was it resolved?
Yeah. So when she was in preschool, that was my jam. I was working 0 to 5. I was a school psychologist. I was in people's homes. I knew right away she needed support. We got the services going. And in preschool, it's just a different system if people are listening outside in New York, that's where I am, preschool is its own beast, right? And in preschool, I had a lot of friends and they let us do creative things. And even though she was not speaking, we got this big fluffy service dog for her that could help her walk, help her detect seizures before they happened. And it was the whole world, it felt like, was watching, at least my community. They were so excited that Devin finally had something that was really helping her. So we get to kindergarten And now different system, different people at the table, and they say, you know, Devin can't talk to her dog. We don't think that our staff should have to talk to the dog. So unless you send in a dog handler, that dog can't come to school. I said, wait. She has a one-on-one aide and a one-on-one nurse. They already know about the dog, and they're more than happy to help Devin learn how to use this dog. She's like working towards independence, and they're like, she'll never be the handler of that dog. Because she was non-speaking, they literally didn't think she was worth an investment, like to spend time on that skill. So I knew it was wrong as a school psychologist. So I went to Department of Ed, and they agreed with me, but the school didn't move. Then I said, okay, you're denying her a reasonable accommodation. Went all the way up to the Department of Justice. They flew in from Washington, knocked on that school district's door, and they still would not back down. They would not back down. They kept saying, nope, if we let Devin have a dog, and then everyone's going to have a dog, and she can't even talk. They justified it by saying she'll never be able to communicate with anyone in any way ever. And everybody has to hear that, because as a young parent, you might believe them, as new on this path. Mm-hmm. But luckily I didn't, I didn't believe them. And so we pushed, took 8 years. And David,
that's unbelievable.
Through the ringer. They would subpoena my personal text messages, my emails. They would read them out in court just to embarrass me, to get me to
get you to back down. They wanted you to
they're
back down.
They're making an example out of me. If you're going to be a squeaky wheel, this is what we're going to do to you. So they spent $1 million on lawyers, taxpayer dollars, to deny her a free accommodation. She already had the dog, and she already had the staff.
Right, the accommodation, you're right.
It was free. So they spent $1 million to say she wasn't worthy of accommodation. But at the end of it, people say, why didn't you just sue them? Why did you do it this way? Because they knew all the people coming up behind us were going to face this. And that's kind of how I always look at things. I want to help Devin, but I want to make sure everyone coming up behind us has a better outcome, that they don't have to struggle that way, because I can acknowledge I know the systems, and I know what levers to pull sometimes. And if I'm struggling, then it just gives me that red flag, this is something that needs to be addressed, because if I can't navigate this, how would the average parent possibly do that? And how would they survive it and not start believing those people that told them that their child lacked competency, that they weren't capable, that their future was hopeless? Because that's how they painted her out to be, this hopeless case that wasn't worthy. Terrible. It was just heartbreaking. It really was.
Do you think that your experience, with your sister helped there in terms of understanding? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here that must have, right? They kind of provided you, I think, with some context that maybe not every other parent who kind of lacked that exposure would have had. Because, again, speaking from my own personal experience, you're right. I mean, it's kind of relentless, that messaging that you're getting when you have a non-speaking child. Even if they don't say it out loud, which sometimes they do, it's implied, right, that they really don't have much potential. They're never going to be able to communicate or do anything. It's just, we'll have to just kind of take care of it. I mean, and that seeps in. I mean, even when you try not to.
Some of the people I was working with, I have been working with since the beginning of my career. So I remember there was this mama online, and she posted Underestimated, the book. And I was like, I don't have time to read a book, but there was just something about the way she presented that I was like, I have to make time for that. That's one more thing I could try, because I was really in that mode of, I just was throwing anything at the wall to see if it would stick, did that work? Did this work? And it's not that I was ever going to give up, but I was kind of getting to a place where I was making peace with the idea that she wasn't going to speak. Do you know? I was like, okay, I guess this isn't happening, I have to let it go. But I read the book, and I thought, wow, maybe this really could work. And I went to all the professionals at the table and I said, I found this provider in Ohio, and we have an appointment in March, and we're going to drive there, and I'm going to see how Devin does. And they just stared at me like I had lost my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Yeah.
And they did not think this one woman who, I had known for 20 something years looked at me and said, "Oh, Heather, you're really setting yourself up. She can't spell. Her IEP goal is to identify letters. She can't do that consistently." And I said, "I don't know. Like in the book, the people were described the same way." And I was a school psychologist. So I kept saying, "I know those scores are, BS. They're not accurate. We cannot accurately test this group. I just want to try it." And even when we came back and we were thrilled and she was doing all these things, it still has taken me about 3 years for them to accept the fact that Devin can spell. She can communicate in that fashion. And now I think with all the advocacy being done, they're kind of in this position where they have to give it a shot. They have to go with the flow. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. I was going to say, well, that's a positive development, right? I mean, that, there's been that level of evolution. I'm just, again, kind of shaking my head as you're describing it because it's so similar to what so many of us face. I think I've told the story on here before, but it was kind of similar. Underestimated was the book that turned me around as well. A friend had recommended it who knew JB. But after Stone starts spelling, right? That's the whole thing, right? Everything opens up. And then I had the infamous IEP meeting after I requested letterboards and all that. And like you said, it was the classic IEP meeting where they called in, every single person possible, right? The intimidation tactic. There were 20 people there. And I sat there and explained that Stone could communicate, was capable of age level education, and that he had a goal of going to Harvard, which remains his goal. And what you said is like the look that you get from people, it's almost of pity, right? Like it's, oh, you poor soul. Oh, bless his heart. Bless his heart. But, along that was just the adamant no. The vice principal said, we will not support it due to Ash's statement, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just, like I said, it's remarkable, these parallel paths that we're taking, different stages and stuff, but very similar stories. And that's why I guess this is a good segue to talk about. This is why the communication rights bill, the fight that's going on right now in Albany, New York, is so critical for our community.
Oh, I agree, because even though this is a New York State bill, what happens in New York will have a ripple effect. And I think that's why everyone's rallying around it, right? Because we know if language is introduced that actually reduces or weakens our rights, that would be a horrible bill to pass. But if we could have this landmark legislation that said letterboards are a way people communicate and keyboards are a way people can type out their thoughts. As I say that out loud, isn't it crazy that people are saying typing is not a valid form of communication? It blows my mind that we have to say this and put it into a law, considering all of us type all day long. It is like a valid form for everybody but our kids, because they see the outside and they just assume it's not really them doing it or it's not possible. It's like they can't change their mindset on it.
And literally the only difference is instead of using a keyboard stand, which many of us use to accommodate our needs to make sure that, we're comfortable when we're communicating, we or another communication partner holds the keyboard. That's the only difference. And somehow they think that, through Ouija or magic or whatever, God knows what type of influence is, somehow impacting the communication, the capabilities of our children. And it's like you said, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Because they kept saying, well, how do you have things set up that she's doing this? And so I went a reverse path with them. I said, I want to see how you show her how to use this communication device that she's had since she was 3.
Yeah.
So I said to her newest teacher, you know, how does she use that device with you? And he said, she says, chicken, water, go. Oh, she learned those in preschool. Those are her 3 buttons she's been pushing since preschool.
Yeah.
She wants to eat, she wants to drink, she wants to leave. That's all she ever used that device for. But they keep replacing it every 3 years when Medicaid will pay for it. The speech therapist and assistive tech, they all support that device. I said, now, when I hold up the letterboard, she can tell me what college she wants to go to,
Mhm.
what job she wants to have, what clothes she wants to wear that day, what boy is cute in her program that she's going to. I said, she doesn't ever say chicken, water, or
Chicken,
go.
water, go. Right. Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But they're like, but it's because you're holding it. I'm like, well, what do you do on the device? So they actually showed me how they are like supporting her entire hand to touch chicken, water, go.
Seriously?
I'm like, okay, so what's actually the difference? It's an electronic device that she's touching with your support, or a piece of cardboard. What's the problem? I just don't understand if it's basically the same thing. But it really took a lot. And I was the mom that took the last school district to federal court. I was the mom who had a billboard in front of the last school. Do you know what I mean? Like, why? They knew I wasn't going to be like, okay, I guess we won't do it. But it still was really hard work.
Wow. Well, I want to hear about this billboard.
Oh. So, I realized quite quickly that I needed to get people's attention, that they were spending all this money. So it was Be Devin's voice, a little cute picture of her, this billboard. Ask Gates Chale what they're doing with your tax dollars. That's all it said. And it had our Facebook page. 200,000 people visited the Facebook page. And back then that was like astronomical. That was just like,
I still consider that astronomical. I mean, for,
everybody driving to the school was passing this billboard and they're like, whoa, what is going on? And actually the Department of Justice, the media attention from that billboard is what drove them to our case. They really do use it as like a thermometer. What are people talking about online? What's resonating? What are people upset about?
Oh, interesting.
And that helped them find us and support us. So, yeah. Billboards.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Whatever I needed to do. It was on every radio station, every TV station. I'm like, I'll just keep talking about it. But the thing,
painfully shy.
yes, and like when I look back at the first board meeting I spoke at, I was shaking, my voice was quivering. But at the end, when everybody just applauded, I thought, okay, what I'm saying needs to be said. And then that kind of just faded away. And then I could just keep going. I knew that Devin's voice wouldn't be heard if I didn't do it. So it's like, I had to. I just felt like there was no other way. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no option. Getting back to New York, again, just for the people who may not be super familiar with the case, let's give them just a little bit more background information, because I think, like you said, it's really setting the stage for the rest of the country. This was this, do you know, was this primarily driven by Elizabeth and Virginia? Did they help spur this, or do you know what? And that's Communication for All. Yeah, I'm just curious, because I know that was my first introduction to it. Was I've known them for a while now, obviously through the community, and Stone and I, as I mentioned to you, did our autism advocacy tour, and that's when I had first heard about it. It was right around that time, late last summer, early fall.
State agencies have been kicking around this idea since 2013. We have like these internal memos that they were saying communication is a right, we have to accommodate it. And then when that was happening, when state agencies were like acknowledging this is ADA law, effective communication.
It's ADA law, right? It's
guaranteed. At the same time, some of the industry giants in the field were getting billing codes, ABA and ASHA, and it just shifted it, because I honestly think that at that moment, they became the default pathway, right? Like they had the billing codes, they were established. And let's be honest, if people want to do a therapy that's not covered, that's hard, right? But if you have the
Yeah.
billing code, so everybody just kind of started getting funneled into these other things, and the communication piece just kind of fell to the wayside. But Elizabeth Bonker in 2019, her valedictorian speech from college, that went viral. She typed it out.
That changed
Every
everything.
It did. People sent it to me from everywhere. Like it was in my feed like for weeks of Elizabeth's speech. And so Assemblyman Santa Barbara has a son with profound autism, and
Okay.
he spearheaded it in the assembly. And him and Elizabeth worked very closely on making sure the language was right, that it didn't restrict things, that it actually gave access, for context. There's people living in group homes in New York State that are fluent on a letterboard, but the staff is not allowed to use that with them. They cannot communicate in their own home.
It's unbelievable. I mean, they treat it like it's toxic, like it's dangerous. And I know, and they literally use that language as well.
Oh, yeah. It will cause harm. Yeah.
That it will
yeah.
cause harm. And I just cannot wrap my brain around that. And what world do you think that giving someone a voice, and there's always one of those things like, at what point is it acceptable? Like, let's just say again, you have interpreters, right? We use analogies all the time to try to explain it. We know that interpreters aren't always 100% accurate, right? When they're interpreting, whether it's, one language to another, they try to get the general gist of what's being communicated. It's all about the communication. So let's just say, even hypothetically, communication partner or the speller, maybe, again, the accuracy isn't 100%. Let's say it's 90%. Let's say it's 80%. Whatever it is, that's still better than 0%.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You can bring in a neutral party. We would do that with an interpreter, right? We'd say, this guy's accusing somebody or something, or he has this complaint and we need to better understand it. Or they're sick and they have a symptom and the interpreter is not giving us what we need. We don't know what the person's thinking or feeling. They bring in another person, a neutral party, and they see what they can glean from that person to just confirm, to double check. That's basic human decency. You don't say, I'm sorry, we don't believe in Spanish interpretation. We're not going to do that anymore.
Right.
The person could be misrepresenting you or influencing your answer. We would never take that away from somebody.
That's exactly right. And I want to point out, because again, you talked about this. We were in a meeting yesterday, a strategy meeting, talking about the communication rights bill. But I love the story that you have personal experience there from the healthcare field. I'm like, where this comes up, where there's accusations, because again, this is one of the supposed dangers of spelling and RPM and, the assisted communication that we're supporting, is that there's supposedly there's a higher chance that sexual abuse will be falsely accused. Like, that's literally what they say. Like, that's in the ASHA statement, that's the concern. Like, someone can be for some reason, just because, this has happened a couple of times that were documented back in the 1990s, that all of a sudden that this is like a huge issue and problem. Like, false accusations don't happen with the speaking community. Right. Anyway,
there's plenty of people who make false accusations, and we don't say, sorry, you're not allowed to talk, because you might say something false.
Again, it's ridiculous. But beyond that, again, I'm on my soapbox, and again, I want you to talk about your story in terms of what you had to go through. But what gets ignored through all this, and this is what I'm going to keep hammering on myself, this is a community that's the most vulnerable to sexual abuse. They are the most vulnerable because they have no way of reporting it, of telling people what would happen. They are the ones that predators seek out because they know this. There are people out there. This is not hyperbole. There are statistics that prove this. And yet, by having this statement, especially ASHA, shame on you, ASHA, for having this, you're basically giving these pedophiles and sex abusers cover. Because if and when there's a case where they are able to say what happened to them, to face the accusers, The defense could just point to this ASHA statement and say, oh, well, look, this, it's just a false accusation. Look, this happens. Like, this is all it is. This is just validation that this is another example of that. They're giving them cover, which again is just inexcusable. Okay, off my soapbox because I want you to talk.
Yeah, but that just makes me think of all the times that people are so scared to come forward. Like, you just think of at the nursing home I worked at, there could be a staff member that was mistreating somebody with dementia, and somebody else would see it, and then you could speak up. But if the person with the dementia said it, for our loved ones, they're not always
happy. There's
happy.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to be. For our loved ones, they're not seen as credible witnesses. And at nursing home, though, we had to report it. Even if the person had dementia, they were cognitively impaired. We knew that their perception of reality was off. If they made an accusation, we still had to go through the steps. Why in the world does that not apply to people who are born without spoken language? It's mind-boggling that we can be treated in a different way, that a different standard is applied to us. That's the definition of discrimination. When you treat one segment of the population different and give them different rights and different safeguards and different considerations. And that's exactly why when the New York State Senator added a couple of words to that bill, it said that it had to be validated and the person had to be completely independent. They had to be autonomous. The entire world responded to that. We said, hey, listen, she's going to put this on the floor. She's going to rush this to a vote. All these senators think this is a good bill. The assembly passed it unanimously. They might not realize she added these two words that reverse the bill. The intention of the bill is gone now. So we put it out there literally at a Saturday morning. By Monday, New York State senators' phones were ringing continuously. Senators called me. They're like, New Zealand just called. The UK is calling me. What is going on? And I said, because you're trying to block people from speaking. People who already have access would lose it if this version of the bill is passed. So that is why the world is rallying around this. And we know how hard it is to get people to pick up a phone and call and talk to somebody. But the emails, like, you think about most advocacy, it's those one-click campaigns, just fill in your name, we'll do the rest. These were like hundreds and hundreds of letters from people that were uniquely personal, that they were their words. They weren't a template. They were people from around the world saying, you cannot do this to this group of people. They fought too hard for their voice. You can't take it from them. And discourage others from trying it. If you Google spelling, it comes up as harmful. So if you're a parent and you're desperate and you think, well, I can't do that, that could harm them, when really that could be the only thing that works. These traditional therapies don't work.
No, they don't. I was going to ask you about that in terms of what other therapies you had, what paths had you gone through before spelling?
Yeah. I mean, we did the speech thing, right?
How long did you do speech? How long did you do speech?
Oh my gosh, she started getting it 12 months old.
Oh, wow.
So at 15 years old is when we started spelling. She still didn't have speech, she still didn't have it. So she's worked with wonderful people. This is not in any way me saying that they weren't trying, but they are trained a certain way to see things a certain way. And when you try to say to them, this is really just motor. Her brain is beautiful and active. And I want you to just appreciate she has these college level thoughts and just coach her motor. I keep saying, when I worked at that nursing home, I feel like the universe put me in that nursing home to see neuro rehab.
Yeah.
When people had a stroke or they were in a car accident and had a brain injury or they were developing ALS, we did everything possible to give them a way to get their voice back. We couldn't even fathom the idea that they no longer would have that ability. We had billing codes. We did intense therapy. It was all covered. But if someone's born without a voice, they don't get any of that. They do not get that strategy. There's no billing code. And again, that's discrimination.
It is discrimination. I think that the problem is twofold primarily that we're battling here. First is kind of the systemic bias, right? And those who don't presume competence, and all the teachers, and like saying the therapists who were trained under a different model. They were trained that their cognitive abilities are impaired or impacted in some ways, and it's so ingrained in them, it seems, that they can't make that paradigm shift. They're just, and we see this unfortunately in a lot of ways in our world right now, where people just can't make that shift. Like, this is bad. This is good. This is bad. This is different. I know you think this, but here's the reality. And it's just like, you could see them just almost, like their brains are frying. You're like, no, this can't be. This can't be, especially against some of those who've been in the field for a long time. So you have that side. And of course, then we have, like what you had mentioned before, the business side. I mean, that's a very real thing, people. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's true that a huge industry has sprung up, particularly around the autism world, with the world of ABA. And Heather, I mean, again, speech therapy, 15 years. I know for Stone, it was over 10 years. I mean, I don't know exactly. Didn't move the needle at all. And again, it wasn't the therapist's fault per se, because it's like trying to treat a broken knee by working on their elbow, or like, it's just like,
right.
The elbow's great, like, but still got to work on that. It's that much of a broken model that we're facing. But the ABA industry is huge. We're talking about, like, last time I checked the research, I think it's like $8 billion or something crazy. Kids are getting referred for 40 hours a week of ABA therapy. Just do the math. And none of that, again, we did ABA for a few years. None of that addressed his communication, because it's not designed to. Like you said, doesn't address the motor. We spent 6 hours, with Don Marie when we first started, 6 hours, and all of a sudden Stone could, basically start communicating, versus thousands of hours, literally thousands of hours in therapy.
And maybe that's what's so hard for people. And there's guilt. They're like, oh my gosh, did I get this all wrong? Did I do this all these years? I mean, I had that moment as a professional when I realized these IQ scores are crap. They do not, what are they doing besides getting the person services, and not even the services they need? I left the field. I was like, I literally cannot be part of this machine. I cannot tell parents their children are deficient, that they have this really low score, because what do we teach people? To talk about the things their kids cannot do. If they want to keep services, they have this mantra. They talk about all those things. And if I had to talk about one thing that I feel terrible as a parent and a professional, that thing that I'm like, oh, at the beginning of my court case, I was that mom. She needs your help. She needs this. She's, so delayed and has all these problems, and you're not helping her. When I really should have said, she is capable if you support her. She can never become independent if you don't. And as soon as I made that shift, everything changed for me and for Devin. But we train parents to talk about deficiencies, because that's how the systems work. That's how you qualify. But then you're also saying it in front of your kids. You're frequently like, that's stimming, that's this. We have like labels for things, instead of saying, when you're dysregulated, your body does that. And like not making it sound like a behavior, something that needs to be punished, or there needs to be a consequence. The narrative has to shift, but ABA doesn't want us to shift that narrative, because the really complex behaviors, the kids that can't communicate, they get 40 hours a week. If all of a sudden people have this beautiful way of explaining what hurts and why they're upset, the behaviors decrease, all those problematic things that they're billing codes for, they go away. So it's really crystal clear to me why there's resistance to this. You don't want to get rid of your cash cow, right? The most complex are the ones you can bill for a very long time at a high rate.
You're absolutely right.
I know that's strong. I know it's a strong statement. I'm probably going to get some blowback, but I feel so confident
I would
that
say,
they could align with us. Yeah.
prove us wrong. I mean, I guess the challenge would be prove it wrong. I mean, because
Right.
the math and the numbers are there, like I said, and we're not alone, Heather. I mean, my God, I can't tell you how many other parents I've talked to, again, who've been on the same path, who've gone through ABA, gone through speech, years and years. And again, and what we're talking about, what I'm talking about, I think you are too, Heather, to be clear, is this, the ability to communicate. That was always, the quest. I didn't know how much, and it's something that I've had to reckon with Stone as well. I knew he was smart. I didn't know how smart, but I knew a lot of it was that he was locked in his brain. I saw that. I was influenced. I saw with Carly Fleischman. Remember Carly? Carly's voice was huge, right? That really opened my eyes back in the day, because that's when Stone was about 3 or 4. I was like, oh, okay. He's in there. I knew he was in there. And so that was always the quest. Nothing got us there at all remotely until we did the motor-based communication.
So why wouldn't ABA say, like, if I'm trying to protect my revenue stream, because let's be brutally honest, they're in the headlines right now. There's been improper billing. There's been overbilling. There's been a lot of stuff going on. They're in defense mode, right? So if it was me, if I was trying to protect my revenue stream and actually reach a mission of helping people, I would try to align with some of these new therapies and say, okay, there's parts of ABA that work really good to teach specific skills. What if we put some of this motor-based coaching in? Because my goodness, if our kids could get 40 hours a week of therapy that actually helped with these things, that it would be mind-blowing. Like,
yeah, so, I can't even a fraction of that, Heather. I mean, we see the amazing progress, when they get 1 to 2 hours a week, right? When they get to work with a practitioner, they do amazing things. Yeah, you're right.
So I wish they'd focus on that instead of, the lobbyists paying to discredit us, because that's such a knee-jerk reaction, right? You get people out there to like discredit the person or the method instead of just saying, what do they got there? They got some secret sauce. Let's see if we can like share the recipe, because I don't think any of us care about who does it. That's the thing. I don't care if it's a speech therapist, a mom, my neighbor.
No.
I don't care who's doing it. Like as long as it's unlocking voices, go for it. I will share it with the world, because this is not a secret. This is not something you keep close to your chest and try to make money off of. This is like liberating people. It's giving them their voice.
And in many cases, literally saving their lives.
Yes.
Think
about the people with those medical conditions. They're like have a pounding headache and they can't say, and it's an aneurysm or something, we could have caught it if they had a way to tell us.
Well, you have that camp for sure. No, that's a great, that's a great point. And again, just from a purely medical standpoint, where they could just, describe their symptoms. I'll never forget the first time Stone was able to tell me he had a headache and asked for ibuprofen. Like, I was like, I almost cried. Like, oh, I can help him, right? Like this is, but the other part about the trauma that they face, that many non-speakers have talked about, the despair of being locked in your brain and, having people treat you like you're not intelligent, talking about you and for, all these things, not getting access to an education, being stuck in first grade curriculum when you're 18 years old. All of these things, they've talked about that they wanted to end their lives. They didn't see a purpose to it.
You wonder why they're acting out and banging their head on the wall and all of these things, because
these behaviors, right?
Yeah. When you think I remember Devin will have multiple devices playing at the same time. She'll have one thing on her iPad, another thing on another iPad, a podcast playing, and then, the TV's on. And I'm like, why do you do that? Like when we finally talk about it. And she said, when you're only in your head, you would go crazy. It was like she was teaching herself different languages. She'd have Curious George on the iPad and Curioso, Jorge on the TV, right? Like, it was just like,
oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
she'd put the closed captioning on. Now she can spell in all these different languages. And you think, how did she do that? But she did it because if she didn't enrich herself, she was just getting the same content all the time. And she had this great teacher who was like showing her about electoral college. I remember her saying she typed out an answer like on her device, which was a big deal. about electoral college. And she said she got it. Like some of the people in the room, the adults in the room didn't follow what I was talking about, but Devin totally got it. And I said, yeah, like me and my husband would be joking at the dinner table and all of our kids are neurodivergent. She'd be the only one that laughed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she knows why that's funny. Like she totally gets it, you know? So like you with Stone, I knew she was in there, but the outsides do not match the insides.
No.
She could be sitting there smiling and be as angry as could be, or she could look really, really angry and be excited. And that's the hard part for parents when they pull out that letterboard sometimes. The kids rolling around on the ground and they think this is too hard.
Oh yeah, you see that all the time.
You know,
right?
like, oh, I don't want to force them, you know, like this isn't fair. I'm making them do something. And then I'll put the letterboard down next to Devin. She's on the ground and she's making noise and she's so dysregulated. She says, keep going.
Oh my gosh.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
And I think, so then I motor push her. Let's sit up. Put your foot on the ground. Push off the couch. I start talking like she had a stroke or a brain injury like I did at the hospital. And her body listens. She can't coach herself through it. Like you think of the dysregulation piece and she can't speak out loud to we do that, right? When we're super stressed, we start talking out loud.
Yeah, we say, I'm stressed. I need to calm down
I got to take a deep breath.
Yeah, right,
you do all those things, but if you are non-speaking, you cannot coach yourself in that same way. So now your body's totally dysregulated. You don't have the auditory that we get. So they rely on us for that part. We are their partner. But I don't want Devin to only have one partner. It can't just be me, like what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
And it can't end with me either. That's why this law is important for New York. But it's really the ADA. Maybe we just have to say to the federal government, listen, we already have this law and states are not interpreting it in a way that's fair. It's not equitable. But I just don't know what, I think we have to attack it from so many angles, but I just think we can't stop. I guess.
And the ADA side, frankly, is a little scary right now, just given the climate, right?
Yeah.
We have a government in place that's cutting services, cutting support. I was thinking as you were talking about your 8-year legal battle, could that happen today? Like with the Department of Education's gutted, right? Like they've cut, enforce all the stuff. I mean, there's no support. Let's be blunt. There is no support for the disability community under this current administration. I mean, it's just
what used to happen is just not happening now. Like the team, I have a team of
like
four.
What used to happen isn't happening.
Yeah, it's like the attorneys I had were top-notch attorneys. They wanted this landmark case. They kept us saying they were all vying for it because they were just like, this is going to make a difference. And to work on anything for 8 years takes dedication. But if there's turmoil and every time we get somebody new in office, it shifts things. It just feels like there's certain departments that need to just stay the same no matter who's in charge. We need some entities that are just not that don't change with an election. We can't have different rights depending on who's in charge, right?
Right.
That's not how it's supposed to be.
No. I won't even go down there. No, we have the same rights, people. Like the rights are there. Whether they're enforced, right? Whether they're
it's like a CSE chairperson in a school district, right? It shouldn't matter which person's sitting before you. The rules are the rules. It shouldn't matter if there's a different person sitting there one day, the rules are the rules.
Yeah. And rights are rights. For people, before we transition into our fun segment section, for people that want to learn more about the New York Communication Rights Bill, where do you think they should go? What's the best resource? Do you think it's who's tracking? I mean, do you think it's Communication for All? Or I don't know.
Communication for All is an excellent resource, but also Spellers Freedom Foundation.
Spellers Freedom, that's right. They're doing updates as well. Spellers Freedom Foundation, I think .org for those.
There's a lot of activity on Instagram right now. There's so many reels. People are coming out with different ones every day. So it's worth, if you're not on social media, it's worth popping over to Instagram for a little bit and just checking it out and seeing all these different people and what they're up to. It's a wonderful to see the community rally around this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our segments. We're going to start with our autism or any tip of the week. We've got some fun jingles you get to hear first, Heather, and then so we'll start with that.
Hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
There we go. It's time for our tip of the week. Heather, I have a feeling you probably have one or more tips of the week that you can share with the audience.
I think it's that shift we were talking about. So instead of thinking about all the things your child can't do the next time you go to a meeting, try to shift the narrative to what they could do with support, what would be possible if we worked on it. Because I think just using that different framework will make a difference in how you feel too. And then if your child is in the meeting, you don't have to feel like you're betraying them. I just would see parents like feel like they had to belittle and demean their child to get the service, and the child's sitting right there, and that's traumatic, right? We don't want the child to ever feel less than. So, but you have to be honest also. You know, there are some things that are going to be really, really hard.
Yeah,
But just
they're going to be
framing
hard.
it with support, right? Like, but what would happen with the right support? What would happen if we did something different than we're doing right now? And when somebody's tried something for 15 years and it hasn't worked, it seems like the perfect time to say,
Yeah.
I think we should try something new.
Yeah, I mean, all joking aside, I mean, at what point, should you just kind of chuck it aside? I mean, I guess it's individual case by case, but for something like that, particularly with speech therapy, knowing what we know now about motor-based communication, I mean, the advice I would give parents, just as a dad who's been through it, would be like, look, if you're not seeing anything after, a couple of years, even like if it's consistent therapy, you may not. Again, there might be other issues at play here. So focus on getting communication in other ways. And again, looking back, that's one of the things I regret is, falling into that trap of hearing especially again, the therapist saying, oh, well, you really need to keep working on the spoken communication because that's the preferred method. That's what our society is. So we need to keep pushing that. I could punch myself in the throat for listening to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, that was
bullshit.
like
That's bullshit.
in the 1880s, they said that for deaf people. I worked with this man. Oh my goodness. Jonathan. I'm allowed to say his name because he wants me to tell his story. He still lives at that nursing home. Okay. So he went to an institution when he was younger called Mystic in Connecticut. And when you ask deaf people how they sign the word mystic, they sign it mistake because they believed spoken language was superior. It was easier for the people the person was trying to communicate with.
Yeah.
So they tied his hands down and only let him use his mouth, and he couldn't speak. It was not something that his body was capable of doing. So for years, he was physically restricted from using his hands. And by the time he got to us at the nursing home, he was terrified of sign language. It took me years of working with him on a daily basis for him to start signing again.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it just shows you like it's the same mentality. How can we tell people it would be way easier if you communicated with your voice? No kidding. They all want to do that. They would all choose that path if it was possible.
No one's choosing, right? Exactly. That's the no shit moment, right? Like,
that's like, this isn't preferred, like this is my only option, just telling a blind person to see. It'd be so much easier if you could see.
Will you just work on, can you just work on seeing a little better? Can you just work on that? Tell me what that image is. You're
such an inconvenience to us.
if you could just describe it better, I would understand what you're seeing or not seeing. Just come on. Yeah. I know it's ridiculous. Okay. Heather, we could talk forever. We gotta keep going. Our next segment is Fact or Fiction.
Get QuickTime ready, and here we go. This is Autism Fact or Fiction. We're breaking down what's real, what's rumor, and what might surprise you. Let's go.
All right. So this is where we either, confirm or deny stereotypes, rumors, things along those lines. What do you have for us there?
Non-speaking means you're non-thinking. That's
Yeah.
the one that feels like the most, relevant to what we're talking about today. Because there is this perception that if someone cannot speak, they have nothing to say, or that they have nothing thoughtful to communicate, that it would just be a base, simple answer. Chicken, water, go. Whatever.
I love that.
Whatever
Yeah.
symbols they have on their, their tray to pick from.
That should be like a t-shirt or something. Right. But it'd probably be too much of an inside joke or whatever. But that would
but Devin would wear it. I would wear it. We would laugh.
I'll totally wear it. We could just rally around it. That could be our fundraising idea.
Yeah. There we go.
No, that's really good. It's yeah. And also I would go along those lines in terms of fact or fiction, because we see the haters out there, and I'm going to continue to call them that, the Catherine Beals of the world, who claim that it's impossible for non-speakers to communicate in such rich, thoughtful language because they cannot understand how they could be so smart, how they can actually learn language, learn how to utilize it, learn words like toxic, which is one of the things she called us out on. Didn't believe that Stone would actually understand that word and use it in a sentence. Because it's not acquired in the traditional manner. They believe that language acquisition has to follow whatever traditional framework that they buy into.
Right. I mean, this is a funny example, but one of the first words Devin spelled, it took me 3 days to learn how to say it. She spelled cataclysmic.
Oh my God.
I was just like, I didn't even know that was a word. And I had to keep looking at my husband and say, what was that word she spelled? Because that was amazing. Like, what was that word? And sometimes when she's spelling, we have to actually write it down as she's spelling it. Her one communication partner was like, I do not know what we're talking about. Mace. She goes, mace? She was spelling Macedonian. She was asking the communication partner if the person she was dating spoke Macedonian, because I don't know why she was asking that question. But at the same time, like, she just kept like going, I do not know what she's talking about. And I said, write it down. And then she's like, I still don't know what she's talking about. So when people say to me, the person who's, communicating with her, being her communication partner, is somehow influencing her, it is crystal clear to me that she uses words that I have to look up. She told her sister, you're being apathetic. And it was so funny because Ellie's like, I got to look that up. She looks up on her phone. She goes, you're correct. And walked away. I was just like, so she's not using words and she uses phrases we wouldn't use. So that's a perfect example. Totally bust that myth.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. We got our parent confession.
Morning routines can go astray. Found socks in the fridge one day. Laughter's the best remedy. Hey, we're just finding our own way. Mom, Dad, confessions every week. Sharing joys and moments we seek. Honest tales that make us unique. Join the club, we're never meek.
Yeah. We're all part of that club, right? Where we've done things that we regret. We look back at, wish it didn't happen, but hey, we're human. No one gave us a roadmap to any of this. We're feeling our way through it. So sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we do things that we kind of cringe at. So Heather, do you have anything you want to share?
It's so funny. I was just talking to Elizabeth Monker and her mom about this exact moment. When Devin got her service dog and the whole community was super excited, this really cool thing happened where when Devin walked into the room, they didn't look away from her anymore. She had this big fluffy dog and everyone would smile. And we were like getting this like positive reaction when we walked in the room. People would be like, oh, I saw you on the news, or I saw your billboard, or, like, I was like, wow, this feels really good. And we're in Target. The dog is there. I'm teaching Devin to push the shopping cart. There's all these people stopping to talk to me. And Devin drops down to her hands and knees and starts licking the wheel of the shopping cart. I have no idea why. Like, why would you do that? I do not know. This mom is like just like that, just like the worst thing ever. And I'm like trying to like regroup and like get Devin up. And now the dog is attached to Devin and they have all these tethers and I'm like sweating and all these people like take their phone out. They are going to start recording.
Oh my God.
Famous girl and her famous dog. And look at, she's eating the shopping cart wheels. And I just had a moment. I really did. But I was trying to protect Devin. And I said, you know, she doesn't know what she's doing right now. And it just hurts me to even say that.
Yeah, right.
Because when we talk about it now, she's like, I was just trying to get them to walk away. She wasn't used to all the attention. She was used to people leaving her alone, look the other way. And now all these people kept coming up to us. And I saw that as such a great thing. Like,
wow.
But she was like, this is overwhelming wherever we go. We are bombarded. And she said, I just thought they'd walk away. And this lady said to me, she turned around and she said, maybe she'll only take her out when she's having a good day.
Oh my God.
And I said, we are having a good day. This is us on a good day. Like, I'll never forget. I was like, this is us on a good day. And people don't get it. So we've talked through those things where I say, I didn't know what to do in that moment. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for you. I didn't know how to make it better, but I should have never made it sound like you were just this like person with no thoughts or reason.
Right,
you were totally illogical. You know, that you did have a purpose behind your behavior. I just didn't understand it.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. I think that's the perfect example of what we go through, you know, examples of how, whether it's impulsive behavior, you know, that again, that they have said that they truly can't control. There's a reason behind it. You know, that's the thing, that this is complex stuff we're working with too. You know, it's not just simple black and white, like this happens and that, like, we're always navigating these situations, right? I mean, and trying to interpret them in real time.
Right. Well, and they say, like, look at the antecedent, then look at the behavior, and then look at the consequence, you know, my training. And I'd say, maybe she needed oral stimulation. Maybe, like, it would never in a million years did I think Devin wants those people to walk away and leave us alone? Like, do you know, like, it was just
how
like,
would that come up?
I didn't know. But we also have kids that have really complex insides, and maybe they're getting a migraine or they're going to have a seizure. And we aren't getting the signals because their body's doing things that we wouldn't do in those scenarios. Like, Devin will start screaming when she has a headache. That would not be what I would do. I wouldn't even think of screaming, you know, like, I don't want to scream. But at that point, she's just like, I need someone to fix this. But now she can spell it. She can do the same thing. I need ibuprofen. I mean, she'll spell out ibuprofen instead of just my head hurts. You know, like, I need 2 ibuprofen, please. And I'm like, wow, what an amazing gift. I just hope other parents try it. You know, I don't want them to be discouraged right now. Don't be discouraged. I know it's a bumpy path, but there's so many people with you. If it's 25% of the population that needs a different kind of approach, then go for it. You're not alone. We might feel like that's a small group, but we're not.
Small but mighty and growing. And I think that you know, we're getting, there's momentum there. And on that note, we have one final segment that we just introduced. It's so new, I forgot what we called it, Dave. Something the light note of the week, or
light on the spectrum, a moment, person, or story, bringing something good. It feels hopeful, grounded, not performative. Use it for a person, a moment, a breakthrough, a story.
all right. So basically, you know, we want to end this on a high note. We do call this the lighter side of the spectrum. What do you got, Heather? I've got something. I'll share.
I hope this is okay because I don't know. I'm gonna just throw it out there. We'll decide if you like it or not. But Devin, you know, she's been telling us that she's hungry, thirsty, or wants to leave for most of her life. But now she can say so much more. And we were at this local college, and she was talking to other college students about being a non-speaker, and she's spelling. And the first communication partner is an educator. She's, been working for decades. And she said, I'm not saying that out loud. And she handed the board to the other communication partner, who's a 19-year-old. And Brooke's like, I'll say it, like, what do you want to say, Devin? And she used the F word, in front of this whole room. And I have to be honest, like at first I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe Brooke said it. And then I thought all these other people in the room saw her as just another 19-year-old now. And, that word did fit, I'll be honest. Like that is probably
That's
the word I would have
perfect.
used in that sentence, right? So those are the moments where I think she gets to just be herself, and she does not want to be censored. When people tell me like, you're moving her hand around the board or you're doing some voodoo magic, I think there is no way I would have said that in front of my grandma.
Right.
No,
Right.
that wasn't me.
That is awesome. That's a great note to go out on. And like I said, just on my side of things, I just want to say something Stone and I have been talking about for a long time is, writing a book, as others have done. And so we are collabing on that. And finally, I've kind of put pen to paper, so to speak. And we're making some real progress. Stone's been writing specifically. Classic case of, it's both inspiring and heartbreaking at the same time, because, we kind of go back. Yeah, we have to go back before we go forward, and talking about those days and his experience and his thoughts. It's just been so powerful to see. But I'm really excited, to get the story out there, because I know it's going to help other, just like, your story and all these, it's all about helping others avoid a lot of what we've had to do.
It's going to resonate with somebody. They're going to say, I see myself in that, or that sounds like my kid, or just putting podcasts on, guys, and just letting your kids like hear things and listen to people talking. Let them have that enrichment, because it could spark something in them. I mean, like when you talked about Carly's voice, Carly, she went over to the keyboard and just started typing when she needed their help. Something in her told her this is the moment. Like, focus your energy, make it happen. Devin can grab my phone sometimes and use autocorrect and, whatever.
Oh,
And
that's
she
great.
every now and then it send a message, but it's not consistent. And that's where the practice comes. So even if it's not easy, it's there. They're in there.
Absolutely. Well, Heather, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I'm really, like I said, really so glad and honored to have met you, have you in our life, work together side by side, on these fights. Let's go win New York. I feel good. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to do it. The energy's out there. So again, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.